So what do Charles Darwin, the human brain, and the Fourth Amendment have in common? Well, when put together, they're going to show you how to get better, faster, and stronger so that you can change the world. All that and more on this episode of your weekly flight briefing. So what I'm reading right now is a book called Evolution 2.0. It's actually from a friend of mine named Perry Marshall. Perry is a genius, and I don't use that term lightly. He's one of the smartest people I know. Now, Perry is a marketing teacher. He's the author of a book called The Definitive Guide to Google AdWords. That's how I met Perry back in 2007, which feels like about 4,000 years ago. I learned Google AdWords from Perry, launching my first business. But Perry's been able to look into two worlds successfully and in a lot of ways bring them together. The two worlds I'm talking about are the worlds of traditional Darwinian evolution and the traditional church. Now, I've got experience in both of those worlds. For example, in school, I was taught a very strict form of Darwinian evolution. That strict form essentially eliminated any other possibilities than the form that I was taught. And then in some of the churches that I grew up in, I was taught a very strict form of intelligent design, which eliminated any options on the other side. In fact, there was a girl that I met a long time ago who in the middle of a sentence had said, I really feel like I've evolved. And then she said, I know I'm not supposed to use that word. And what Perry's done successfully is show that a true understanding of the nature of human development doesn't sit in either one of those camps. Now, you may be in one of those camps, and you might have just heard me say that and bristled. The hair on the back of your neck stood up. And I can tell you, if that's you, you should read this book. Because what Perry does is show you that some of the best science that's happening right now doesn't exist in the traditional Darwinian camp. For example, you can't explain things like handicapped parking spots using a traditional survival of the fittest model. And some of the things that Charles Darwin discovered were leveraging points for what the scientists now are using today. But by and large, the evolutionary biologists working right now have discarded a lot of the things that were learned in the late 1900s or late 18 and early 1900s and have moved into a different model. In the same way, much of the strict sort of creationist church has to look at things like bacteria changing and modifying and growing under strain to understand how the human body is working. So, if you're interested in thinking differently, this is the reason why I love this book. It shows you how to think in a new way. And I can tell you, you don't need to agree with all of it. In fact, nothing you read, you need to agree with all of it. Nothing I say, you need to agree with all of it. But what Evolution 2.0 gives you in a really neat way is it teaches you a new way of looking at the world. And by the way, Perry's Evolution 2.0 prize puts his money where his mouth is. I recommend it. It's not light reading, by the way. It's not, your beach trash fiction. It's not Danielle Steele. But I think you're going to like it. And that's what I'm reading this week. So here's what I'm focusing on right now. Meditation. Here's a fact. Your mind is very powerful. Here's another thing that's probably a fact, but I just might have made it up. You're probably not using all of your mind. In fact, a lot of researchers show that most people are using maybe 7, maybe 10% of your mind, but your mind is amazing. In fact, you've got this conscious mind that can focus in on things like right now I'm focusing in on teaching this one point, while at the same time, your subconscious mind can process thousands and thousands of things simultaneously. You simply have a powerful mind. But most people live at the whim of wherever their mind is going at any given time, like the sail of a vessel in a storm kind of waving back and forth. But there is a way to train your mind. And for some of you who have listened to versions of my show called EdTalks, you'll know I did an episode called Total Mind Control. My goal is very simple. I want to be able to dominate, to control the thoughts that are going through my head. That includes dreaming, that includes planning, that includes looking at the past with an open mind. And the way to do that, the way to train your mind, I believe, is through meditation. It's primarily through awareness. So I want to take you back into the cockpit of the F-18. When I was learning to fly, we trained ourselves on the most basic maneuvers through repetition. 3G turn, 4G turn, 5G turn, 6G turn, 7G turn, repeat, 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 perfect, 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 so that you can build onto bigger things. Simply put, meditation teaches you the fundamentals of understanding how to access the layers of your brain that you're frankly not accessing right now. One of the most valuable things that I found about meditation is this: it gives you awareness. So, for example, anyone who's meditated before knows that in the beginning, it's frustrating. In the beginning, it's insanely frustrating. I mean, you'll sit down for a simple 10-minute meditation, and in that 10 minutes, all your goal is to focus on your breath. And in 10 minutes, you may focus on your breath once for like 5 seconds. I mean, maybe twice for 15 seconds, okay? You realize that your mind is going all over the place. And here's the clue. That's part of the game. That's part of the learning process. What you realize is that in real life, your mind is going all over the place. Meditation gives you the ability of awareness, okay? So I use meditation as a training tool. I use meditation for me to access layers of my subconscious mind so that I can begin to train myself to think in a certain way. And I'm not going to go deep in this. If you want to go deeper, go to my episode 7 of EdTalks, where I talk about how to deal with the past and how to look into the future and the things that are allowed and the things that aren't. What I can tell you is that meditation, being an amazing tool, is something that you should try today. And if you've been using it and you're particularly good at it, then go deeper. And in today's resource section, I'm going to be giving you 2 tools that I've used very successfully in the past to train myself on meditation. All right, my latest resource for you is a podcast. It's called the More Perfect Podcast. It comes from the folks at NYC Studios. And if you haven't been familiar with their podcasts, those are at least the highest quality, most well-researched podcasts that I have listened to. The More Perfect Podcast right now is focusing on the amendments to the U.S. Constitution. Now, most Americans are woefully, if not ignorantly, completely blissfully unaware of the amendments. Most people would be able to tell you some of the First Amendment and some of the Second Amendment, and that's basically about it. In fact, if you ask people, how many amendments are there to the Constitution? Most people wouldn't be able to tell you. I even had to look it up to tell you that there are 27. The last amendment, the 27th, tells Congress that if they give themselves a pay raise, it doesn't go into effect until the next term, until some of them are out of action, okay? So the More Perfect Podcast is going through each of the amendments. And I got to tell you, it's a mind-blowing trip through understanding the personal freedoms that we've been given right here in the United States of America. For example, did you know that the police, law enforcement, they actually have to give you a reason if they arrest you? That wasn't always the case. I mean, look, we came out of a tyrannical, despotic British rule, and we wrote some rules into our Constitution for a really good reason. Now, I'm recording this weekly flight briefing when we're in the midst of quarantine, COVID-19 lockdown, baby. And right now, the Constitution is being discussed more than ever. That's probably because personal liberties are being pushed now more than ever. So, jump into the More Perfect Podcast. Listen in. You're going to learn some new things, and you're going to appreciate some new things about the country that you live in. And if you're not from the United States, you're going to appreciate some new things about the world that we live in. Give it a listen. I think you'll like it. All right, I'm going to wrap up today's show with the app of the week and the challenge of the week together. The app of the week is actually 2 apps, and it goes back to meditation. I discussed really getting in and getting started with meditation if you haven't done it before, and then going deeper if you have done it before. Now, if you're a newbie and meditation is not something that you're totally used to, I recommend the app Headspace. Headspace gives you 10 free days of 10-minute meditations per day, and my challenge for you is to jump in there and use 10 days, 10 minutes a day. That's all. Just start out by being aware of the thoughts that are going through your mind. If you are more of a meditation intermediate or expert, the app that I recommend is called Insight Timer. That's a user-generated app. In other words, people contribute their own meditations to the app, so it's always growing and you've got new things to try. Now, I'm going to give you a little secret that I don't usually tell anybody about Insight Timer, okay? I wanted to be able to create my own meditations using the ancient sacred texts. So the old texts, for example, Psalm 1, you may have heard about the tree being planted by the water. And I wanted to create a meditation that I could use on Insight Timer because I really like their interface. But as I uploaded my own recorded meditation into Insight Timer, I thought, you know what? I can't do this because I got a brand. Ed Rush is the brand that's like the fighter pilot guy, human performance, productivity, persuasion, events. I can't be like the meditation guy too. That's just diluting my brand. So I found a royalty-free picture that I thought was perfect. And I made up a name, Brock Divine. I thought that was like the coolest meditation guy name ever. And I uploaded Brock Divine. And now I'm Brock Divine on Insight Timer. So just saying. If you want to go listen to a good meditation, I actually read Psalm 1 right out of the ancient text, and you hear my voice, but it's a different name, okay? Don't tell anybody. You're not allowed to tell anybody that I just told you that. All right? So here's my challenge for you. My challenge is really simple. 10 days, 10 minutes a day of meditation. If you want to go deeper, go just a little bit deeper, 30 minutes a day for 21 days. Hey, if you just joined us, my name's Ed Rush, and this is your weekly flight briefing. Every single week, both on video and audio on the podcast, I release my latest books and the latest things that I'm focusing on, and the latest apps that I'm using, and my goal is to challenge you to live a better life, to be faster and stronger and better so that you can go change the world. And let me tell you, the world needs changing. So when would now be a great time to take action, to see some results, and to change the world? I'll talk to you soon.